Episode 49, Indie Creator Exchange. Finally, it's been since March. IC3. We got Alfred here with us in his first comic, Renegade. Alfred, how are you doing this fine Sunday morning?
Kurt, I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here.
You're welcome.
Great. So let's kick things off, folks. This is where we interview all the great indie creators that we meet and come across. And Kurt, what was the origin story here? We met him at Alfred at the IC3.
Yes. Based on it was like a week prior to the event. Matt and Jamie, the showrunners for IC3, did a kind of 10 minutes. You got in the queue, and people were able to talk about who they were and everything. And I used that episode primarily to sort of create a list. Knowing we weren't going to have a lot of time. To be able to reach out and meet people. And Alfred was one of the top people on those lists because I really liked his interview with Matt and Jamie. So here we are.
Awesome.
Right on. So the way we usually do this is we go back in time, and we want to ask you before you ever made your first comic, what were you looking at when you were a little kid that opened your eyes to the world of comics? Artists, influence, comics, titles, companies. What do you remember being the Great Awakening?
So my inside the actor's studio moment. Okay. I'll be honest, man. I didn't have access to a ton of comics growing up. I grew up in like central Maine, so like just east of West Bumfuck, and so I didn't have like the only thing I had was I was born in '85, so like in the '90s you still had some newsstand comics. And so, like, the way I ended up getting comics was like the Ames department store would have like the 3-packs of comics,
and you couldn't.
And so I would get those.
You didn't even know what you were buying.
That's where I would be able to get them. Was at the department store in like those 3-packs. If I could convince mom or dad to buy them for me.
So you didn't even know what you could only see the one on the front, and you didn't even know what else was in there.
Exactly. Yep. And I can tell you, I remember the best 3-pack I ever got. I literally have sought out and gotten those issues since because they were so burned in my memory.
Yeah.
What are the issues?
Okay, well, starting off, awesome Wolverine issue. Wolverine 67, text, slinging ink, beautiful Wolverine cover. I actually have them, like, literally right around the corner at my desk. I have all those issues stacked up, like, because I just have extra copies, like, because I just like to have them, like, nostalgia and stuff.
So if you were
so that was Wolverine 60.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you finish. Go ahead.
I was in Wolverine 67, Hulk 390 by Dale Keown, another solid issue, and then a really fun issue that I know no one talks about. Motormouth and Kill Power, issue 11, going up against the Electro Vampires.
Was that Marvel?
Marvel UK.
Okay. Whoa. Right. Yeah.
So you can guess of those 3 issues, which one was sandwiched in the middle?
The Motormouth?
Yes! Motormouth was not the one they were selling on.
Right. Let's get rid of that. Sometimes I buy 10-packs at my local mall comic store, Newberry Comics.
Yeah.
And, I buy it because it's super cheap. You end up paying like about 60 cents a comic. They're $5.99 for a 10-pack. But they're definitely putting, it's a crap sandwich. They're putting something on the outer the outer two are like, at least like some Image comics or some Vault comics or something,
Yep.
and then on the inside, it's literally the same, variants of the same comic. And I'm like, oh man, I got, I'm getting two of the same comic with different covers. I don't want that. But I've opened those on the air, and I have to say I have been pleasantly surprised. But overall, you realize you're just getting the garbage that they want to get rid of, and they're probably losing money on. But the funny thing about when you're that perfect age, though, anything you would have opened up would have been influential to you, because you're just like, receptive, and you're like, looking at this like, oh wow, I don't get comics that often, and finally I get something in my hands. I mean, what would, if it would, that middle comic, if that would have been like, Vicky Valentine, or if it would have been like, you could have went in a whole other direction. You never know, right? Like, oh, my influence is, so so yeah, that, it really is about, I think, the nostalgia, and the memories, and going back to childhood. We're all capturing childhood. But take us forward. So you're starting to get an interest in comics, and so as far as like your art skills, was there any training? What was school like? What was the involvement with comics from there?
So initially, actually, I wanted to be a cartoonist,
Right.
like a Disney animator. That was like kind of a dream of mine. So I used to draw voraciously as a kid. Like that's all I used to do. And my mom was an ER nurse, and so I would bug her all the time. Go in there and steal some copy paper. So that was a big thing. She would go steal a stack of copy paper, like
From the ER.
I had drawing paper.
Hey man, I got to print out this guy's vitals. Oh no, we're out of paper. Oh well.
So, oh well, Al needs to draw. Um, and that's honestly so like it's a weird dichotomy, but that's kind of where the split came for me. Is like I felt early on like I loved like I didn't have access to a ton of comics, but when I was 12, we got satellite TV because again, middle of nowhere, Maine, and we got HBO. And that was right around 97. That's when Todd McFarlane's Spawn came out.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
As a kid who wanted to be a cartoonist, seeing that cartoon for the first time. Dude, to this day, there is nothing cooler than inking pages with a dip pen in a smoky warehouse while wearing a suit. There's nothing cooler than that.
That's funny. I'm quite a bit older, but my analog to that was um, in the Marvel cheap cutout paper animation that they had. When Captain
Yeah.
America fails his mind. So I don't know. Those were made in the mid 60s. I probably didn't see them until the mid 70s, but I was a little kid. And they weren't even on regular TV. There was something called UHF TV.
Yeah.
I had
Back then,
UHF,
I had to
absolutely.
go to my
Yes.
friend's house.
That's where you watch the old black and white World War II movies when you stayed home sick from school.
Yep.
Right.
Rawhide.
Yeah. So
Rawhide.
imagine, like, so I was a little kid, and I would get wide eyed because I'm like, Iron Man cartoons? Are you kidding me? Like Thor, and then there was like this holy grail, because apparently there was like an X-Men episode that was made. I don't know if I ever saw it or ever found it, but yeah, it's just that real basic, like, age that you're at, impressionable age that you're at, where it's like imprinting, like steel engraving into your memory, forever. And then
Yeah. So I had the thing of like wanting to be a cartoonist, loving cartoons and drawing and stuff. Um, but I also like I grew up with like kind of an old school dad, so like what movie he wanted to watch is what we were watching. So I saw like Terminator when I was 4.
Yeah, a little young,
And
a little
so
bit.
literally most of my childhood was literally me with like a little tablet or like a drawing table on my lap, drawing cartoons while watching 80s action movies.
Right.
Nice.
And so that weird cross section is kind of how you get me. And then you have that base. And then when I see Todd McFarlane drawing, Spawn at the beginning of the cartoon, and the Spawn cartoon was that was it for me. When I saw the Spawn cartoon, it was like, wait a minute. You can do like grown up adult stuff in a cart. That was it. The idea of drawing like kids cartoons kind of fell by the way. I was 12, 13, kind of losing out on that stuff anyway. And then, you see Todd McFarlane Spawn. It's like, well, fuck Bugs Bunny.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Those Bugs Bunny cartoons have been kicking around since the 40s, and they just been in replays. They just hit the replay button. Yeah, and a lot of that stuff like has to be like censored now because of the
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
All right, so now take us into your first effort making. I mean, I think Kurt said that we have it here, that this is your very first comic. Is what
Yeah.
was this was this something that you had in the works for a long time? What was the germ for the idea of, hey, I'm going to actually do this? I'm going to spend money on printing. I'm going to invest my time. How did that all work out?
All right. Indulge me for a little bit because it's a little bit of a long story, but basically, I had kind of given up on cartooning and stuff. Once I hit like 14, I started looking at it. I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna go draw Bugs Bunny. And then I started, getting into other stuff. I got really into music, and so then, you get distracted, right? So, long story short, years later, after doing stand-up comedy for like a decade, the pandemic hit, and so there was no more stand-up comedy. And so I was looking for some kind of creative outlet, and surfing YouTube, and I found comic tropes and started watching that and getting really into that. And then started watching the interviews on comic tropes. Started with Todd McFarlane, of course, because the Todd father. And then I saw the interview with Ed and Jim from Cartoonist Kayfabe.
Yeah.
Found Cartoonist Kayfabe, and then really that was it. Like once I started into Cartoonist Kayfabe, it started getting introduced to more indie comics and seeing the full breadth of what comics could be.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, well, I wanted to do fucked up adult cartoons, but to try and do a cartoon as a guy, impossible. Especially back then. Now it might be possible. But back then it just, wasn't really a thing when I was growing up. So now it's like, okay, well, I can do something as a comic. So I was like, let me just make something. And so literally I was in the chat for one of the episodes of Cartoonist Kayfabe. It was for Caliber Comics issue 2. And it's an anthology comic. And so I was talking to some of the people in the chat, and I was like, somebody should do an indie anthology. And Vlad was like, yeah, you should do it. And so I was like, fuck it, okay. And so I did an anthology comic, and so I could do my own comic. And that's where Renegade came from. It was like, I need to do something for this. I love 80s action vigilante comics. Let me do, an 80s action movie vigilante comic. So that's where the idea came from. And then I haven't drawn a ton in a long time, so let me try and figure out how to do this again.
What was the anthology called?
That's Defective Comics.
That
That's
is
the one
okay.
I do.
All right. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. I started that with Devin Yider and Omak Vera and Gabby and Vlad. and got together and started putting the books together and stuff. And so that's where Renegade came from. It was initially in the first couple issues of Defective Comics, as like in pieces, and then I put it all together in a compilation. You can really see like there's a lot about this comic that like I'm embarrassed by because it's my first time. Um, and my style has definitely changed a little bit since then. Um, but overall, I'm pretty happy with that because it gets the idea across of what I'm going for.
Right. So you were collaborating with a bunch of other people then.
It was an anthology to do like everybody do their own stories that way because like the idea of doing a 20-page comic from nothing is really intimidating.
Yeah.
And it was actually Vlad who said, well, dude, give yourself some wins. Get 5 pages together and put it out, and then do another 5 page. And so that's how I've slowly been building it.
It's
Yeah.
great advice.
Yeah, we're doing exactly the same thing. We're doing 6 pages at a time with our collabs, and we're working with a couple of other artists, and you just bite off a little bit at a time, and eventually, if you do a 6 pager and then you do to be continued and another 6 pager, another 6 pager, then it gets compiled. I mean, it's basically the Shonen Jump model, Japanese model. Um,
Yeah.
but it's also it's more practical than the holding up in a cabin for a year and then coming out with something. So
Yeah.
yeah. So all right. So now, so you put out what year did you put out the anthology?
The anthology started in 2023, and yeah, it started with IC3, and and been going along ever since, putting out issues like once or twice a year. Um, and in the meantime, I've been writing my ass off, trying to actually craft like a good story to go with the idea of Renegade. So that's what I've been really working on is writing out the issues. I plotted out literally the whole series. I have plotted out now, and so now I'm going through and filling in the issues and writing out the actual issues. Um, my goal is to get everything ready so that when I have some time, I can really just crank out the drawing of the pages. Do all the groundwork first,
Uh-huh.
and then knock it out.
So yeah. So, all right. So when when you have the idea for Renegade, um, give us the elevator pitch. I see here that it's like bringing street level justice to white collar criminals. That caught my attention. So give what was the inspiration and the genesis behind getting your full comics character and story together.
Yeah, so I wanted to do a vigilante comic. I love Punisher and all that kind of stuff. I'm your typical meathead dude in that way.
Mhm.
But I always think it's lame that they go after like drug dealers and shit like who gives a fuck? So I wanted to make one who goes after the CEOs, you know.
Yeah.
And then ironically, I made the comic, and then a guy named Luigi thought it was a really good idea.
um, yeah, there's it's interesting, without getting too much into like politics, but it is interesting that we see that there's this kind of like retail, messaging out there where every candidate is running and they say, "Oh, there's crime in the streets. I'm going to clean up the crime in the streets," and blah blah blah, and they clean up like the shoplifter and they go after the guy like oh, there's a mugger, a carjacker, there's somebody that pushed somebody off the subway platform, and all those are crimes and everything, but we're talking small potatoes. Meanwhile, they're in the back room cutting deals, like hey, let's put the dangerous chemicals in every freaking you know spray, the backyard spray in Walmart. and hundreds of thousands of people get like debilitated.
And hey, newsflash, this isn't new. Bayer, nobody remember Bayer, the aspirin
Right.
people released HIV laden aspirin in the 80s and basically had no fucking consequence. This shit's been going on forever,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, right. So, and the same thing, with these the same thing with these immigration raids that are going on right now. Now, I'm not weighing, I know there's probably people, on every side, and it's fine if you want to go after people that are here in the country illegally. But what about the employers that have been luring millions of people here for decades and paying them off the books knowingly and repeatedly, and nothing ever happens to them? Like, even if you just, even if you really, really, really were sincere and you just like, I just want to have illegal aliens out of our country, even if you really just believe that, this would be the way to do it, would be to go after the employers that are luring them here. So,
Yeah, yeah,
there's such a hypocrisy, right?
yeah.
Right. So you created a character, Renegade, and he's going to finally even the score here with some of these some of these white collar guys.
Yeah, I just like I said, I love the vigilante thing. I mean, it's I don't like fantasy stuff like Lord of the Rings, but arguably a vigilante is just a meathead fantasy book. The idea that like a dude with a gun is gonna solve any problems is borderline doofy, but it's my fun little fantasy
Yeah.
world where that's possible. I don't like fairies and trolls, but I like to imagine a lunatic with a gun could solve a problem.
You don't want to do like 10 pages of Lady Galadriel coming in from the forest and enchanting.
Any book where character names have multiple apostrophes, I'm not a fan.
Okay, so I'm seeing this thing, and it's like street level justice coming to the boardroom, right? So is it when it comes to the actual battle sequences, is it kind of one sided where there's just like a white collar guy in a soft plushy shirt, and the here comes
Well, that was obviously one of the things. It's like, well, I mean, how good are those fights going to be? So I had the idea that he had some scumbag security guys he's going to get
right, there
through
you
to get
go.
the job.
Yeah, and it
And because it is a comic book, I'll just let you know in the future, teaser, exclusive teaser right here. Some of the people will come back because he gets interrupted mid doing his
yeah.
job. So some of those people will come back now modified and changed, having interacted with Renegade. And so the fights that will
Oh,
ensue after that will be different.
they upgraded.
Yeah, some of them get upgrades.
Oh, that's cool.
Some guys get, they had some money, bad things happen to them. They're a little fadi gumats now, and
Well, I keep coming back to like RoboCop and the way they're making these new police robots, right? Was Ad 209 was the one that
yeah,
comes in and then unfortunately kills that one guy. But the idea of the corporate CEOs having not only god awful amounts of money, but they're also in cahoots with military industrial complexes. Are these kinds of themes coming into Renegade, or are you running down another path, maybe a little bit more
so
comical?
well, I'm always trying to thread the needle because, like, on the one hand, like I want it to be entertaining for the getting the id out, getting the evil out in that aspect. Like, I want it to be cathartic for people who don't like the world. They can read the book and be like, wasn't that awesome? This piece of
Yeah.
shit got his due, At the same time, I'm not a super serious guy and I don't take any of this too serious. So there's always a little bit of goofiness to it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's trying to walk that line between like super serious, like tackling an issue and being a dumbass, and I'm really trying to do that tightrope walk.
I hear what you're saying about the like cathartic nature of this though, because I'm an art teacher in during the school year. I teach, art in a middle school during the school year, and then when the summer comes, that's when all the teachers are doing all these like catch up things, and I'm calling the insurance company, and I'm going to the doctor visits, and the calling the medical healthcare provider and everything, and you know, it's enraging. I'm like ripping my hair out of my head. I'm on the line, with the cable company, and I just have a simple address change, and it's like, press button 3 if you, blah, 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 and then you get disconnected after an hour, and it's just like enraging. So I can see like this fantasy thing where you're going in there with like Charles Bronson, and then you're going straight to the corporate boardroom, where they make all these life or death decisions with people. I mean, I can't tell you how many companies I've been on the phone with this summer. Just it's the car insurance company, it's the water company,
You can take out the word car. It's any insurance,
any
any company you give money to who's then supposed to pay when something fucked up
right.
happens. Their business model is being fucked up.
Right, and how many ways can they jack you up? And then like there's this the freaking industry collusion where you call all State Farm, Geico. It doesn't matter. They're all the same, because they're all they get together at their annual convention and they go, let's jack everybody's up. So yeah, I mean it must be a release to write some stories where you can
Yeah, I mean that was my thing. Is like I said, I love the Punisher, but it's like how many times can you go after a fucking guy who's slinging coke? I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like that guy is not the fucking problem.
Right, right. I mean, it's a problem, but it's like so low level compared to, all the other crap that's happening around here.
So, promotion, Al. How have you been going about promoting Renegade?
Terribly, awful, terrible job. I'm brutal. Uh, so what I'm doing is I actually just brought. I'm bringing somebody on board to actually handle marketing for like all of Defective Comics because, um, spoiler alert: there's no money in comics. So unless you like don't have a day job to try and make a comic and then market it and do it, it's too much. I only have so much bandwidth. I have a day job. I'm a dad. I have other priorities. So I'm bringing somebody else in to help with the marketing of these books. Do have a website with an online store, defectivecomics.net. So you can go there. You can buy a copy of Renegade or some of the anthology books. So I have that. That's all up and running. And we have some plans for the future, doing a YouTube show, it's kind of like what you guys are doing at some point, just getting the word out there. But up until now, it's just been like, okay, well, I made the comic and I'll go to some conventions and sling the comics and see how that goes. And spoiler alert, if you don't advertise, it doesn't go great.
Oh, tell me about it. I have everybody's in the same boat, and this is why Kurt asked this question. To see if anybody's doing anything differently. Eventually this led to like some collaborative efforts. Like we're really excited about the Power Pulp comics guys that all got together and they're sharing distribution resources and advertising resources and stuff. But yeah, this is why we're having you on because networking, finding the right audiences, changing your algorithms, getting out in the algorithms and stuff, and and it is hard. It's a slog because it's not like Ames. The department store is carrying Turbo Pit Fighter comics anytime soon, so it's store by store. little by little. But I think eventually, if you have a body of work, that hopefully things level out, and you have the cumulative effect, where you have more than a couple of copies of your stuff that you can sell, and things get a little bit easier. I mean, at least in theory, that's what we're all working towards. So it's good to hear that you're thinking about this, and that you're acting on it. You're bringing in somebody else. Maybe that's not an artist or something that can contribute, and spend some time doing that. Um,
What's
other,
the what is the active role that you're contracting with this marketing person? Like, what are the problems? What are
That's
the
what we're working
problems?
on.
What do you want them to solve? Like, do you have a short list, a long list, just a big frustrating
Yeah, I mean
list? Is it
the I want them to handle the entire marketing aspect. So like the branding for Defective Comics, the brand, the handling the brand essentially, as well as the website, all that kind of stuff, the social media, being the person, the advertising is a big part of that as well. To handle all of those other aspects that get the comic into someone's hand, right? Because it's my job to make the thing. But I need someone to help me get the thing into other people's hands.
Right. That that's what I love about Kurt, because for me, I just want to make the pages. I just want to like do the creative stuff, and that takes a lot of time as it is. And so when I found Kurt, it's not that Kurt isn't an artist too. Kurt's doing inking, and he's doing all this creative stuff too. But Kurt has this whole side business that he does, where he does helps artists with marketing and SEO, and like setting people up with quick print stations and all this. And I listen to it all and everything, but if I wake up on a weekend and I have a couple of hours, I want to like find a pencil and and start drawing something in a pad, and
Yeah,
it's so it is about finding the right fit and the right other people that can do some of these other tasks. And I understand where you're coming from with that.
yeah. I mean, the best part about comics is you can do it all yourself. The worst part is then you have to do it all yourself.
yeah, yeah. That's and if you don't enjoy it, if you don't enjoy um, let's say the marketing or the biz, it's kind of even more the business side of things, because I think one of the hardest things that I faced coming back into arts after spending 9 years of my life as a manager of a retail store, assistant manager, I should say. Um, when I came back, as I was coming back, I kept saying to myself, well, it won't matter because my shit's so fucking good. People are just going to want to buy it. And then even on top of that, my brain was like, I would even, when I was putting my first series of books out, I was like, oh, well, I'll go here and sell them because, those people there like comic books. Well, the biggest thing I think I found in in a reality, a bringing light to reality, is the genre specifics. Like if you look at our industry, indie comics, you
Mhm.
couldn't say it's really all about superheroes. I really believe superheroes is one part of it, but even if you take the genre of superheroes, it breaks down into multiple genres: comedy, gore, sexuality. You know what I mean? Like, so even going into a comic book con, a show, a local thing, and you're thinking, oh yeah, I do, and people are coming up like, yeah, I'm Kurt, I do the superhero comic, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, superhero comic. Next question usually coming out is like, well, what do they do? What they're really asking is, who's this for? Is it for me? I like collecting
Yeah,
this. So the art is not the most important thing. I think when it gets down to real, true marketing in the industry, though, I think it pulls a lot of weight. I think it is you mentioned with the marketing person, which I hope they do help you create a clarity out there is the branding. In other words, like honestly, I've seen Defective comics in passing, like just sort of, oh, it's Defective comics, and I'm like, okay, well, what does Defective comics produce? Like, do they do all genre? Which really does
Yeah.
make me go, oh gosh, this company's like, I got to wade through all. I'm not gonna. I'm looking for the, sword and sorcery or the, these kinds of like, kind of B movie, vigilante comics and stuff, which was another reason I was like, oh yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, this is speaking to me because it's the same language I grew up on, like you said, the old 80s movies and the such and everything. And I also want to kind of bring it back to, your approach in making your pages. They're so honest. Raw is another way of categorizing your work, but are you familiar? You're familiar with Adam Lemna, right? Relic Hunter
Yeah,
Adam
love
Lemna.
it.
There's a similarity for me. I think I have them right here. When we think about like comics, that something like Adam, which we've had him on it, and it's a similar type of story where it's like it's way more about my passion and me speaking out than it is like becoming a Todd McFarlane level artist, right?
Yeah,
Would you agree?
that was why I initially wanted to go. It's funny knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like, well, I'll do cartoons because that's easier than drawing comic books. Knowing what you know now, that could a dumber statement could not have been made. But because you're young and you look and you're like, well, it's a simple drawing of Bugs Bunny. I can do that. It's like, yeah, but can you do it 8,000 times exactly the same?
Yeah.
No. Get out of cartooning.
Right.
So yeah, that was a big part of it. I talked to Marty Keene about this, and Marty had a great, because I was telling him like, geez, my art, whatever. He's like, I don't know, man. He goes, I'm not making comics for people to stop and stare at the pages. I'm making comics to be read. And that's a really great way to put it. Yeah, I'm making comics to be read. I want to tell a fun story that ultimately I want you to chuckle once or twice while you're reading it, be entertained, be glad you read it. Don't be like, oh, that was a waste of 15 minutes. That's really all I'm looking for. Right. I'm not looking to change the world. Or I want you to have a couple of chuckles, have a fun ride while you read it, and be glad you did. That was it.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is tongue in cheek. Is kind of like kitschy, campy, melodramatic, over the top, right? That's all intent.
Yeah, it's over the top is a great way to put
Yeah,
it. Definitely.
It's definitely intentional, and it's great. You want to tickle people's funny bone, right? And then let's talk about the art style before we forget. So are you familiar with the whole power comics movement?
Not really. What's that?
Kurt, you want to explain that? So Power Comic, I know it's a podcast that's been around for like 10 years, and I came upon it late, but Kurt was aware of it a lot earlier than me. So I want to the way I would describe it, it was like they try to find like lost comics from like the 80s and 90s that were
Oh
done.
wait, yeah. Didn't they do like I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but didn't they do like
Vendetta.
Crowbar 9?
Yeah,
okay.
Vendetta. Yeah, Steve McCardle is one of the many that Ethan and his crew, Benjamin Mara, and I'm blanking on the other guy. They actually started as a Tumblr. There was one of the first like late 70s, early 80s comics was actually an anthology called Power Comics. And so they use that to sort of like help people understand immediately what you're getting into with their show. But they started with a Tumblr and then they migrated to a YouTube channel. But they got all the way to the point where they hunted down these individuals and they were still around. I mean, Steve is like a perfect example of somebody who's
Yeah.
still at it, still has his pages, still has his, you know what I mean? Like he's still actively. So it was actually very easy for Floating World to basically put all this together, and Crowbar and Vendetta are put out. Um, so that, I guess, is the shortest answer. Jake, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, but as far as the art style, so Power Comics it's a style where they're definitely embracing the homemade quality. You might even say amateurish, but they
Yeah.
don't want to like get bogged down in some kind of like perfect anatomy in every panel. They don't want to get bogged down. Oh, the perspective is off here. They say, hey, there's a definite passion coming through here, and
Yeah,
for decades people turned their noses up at this, saying, wow, this isn't as good as Gil Kane and Neil Adams. I'm not going to give it the time of day.
yeah,
But when you think about it, right, like Jack Kirby evolved, and he eventually found his final true style that he wanted to work in, right? And it wasn't, the most realistic anatomy and the most, it was
He did it. He did that years ago. He did that before he did the stuff we know him
right.
for. He was totally capable, but it wasn't as exciting.
Right. Yeah, so it's basically like, finding the artist's, true authentic voice, whoever they are. And there's a lot of different styles to that, but it ends up reminding you of the comics that we made in class when we were kids, when we were like, first discovering, the ability to do storytelling and everything. And what you find is that it totally doesn't matter. You can still enjoy the story. You can still get the humor. You can still get all the value, from comics. And so these power comic guys, they try to find all these like obscure things, and they try to find these rare comics, and this one's worth $100. It's only like a couple of copies still around, and all that. And every time I see an art style like this, which is not the most commercial style that you ever see.
Hmm.
I always ask, oh, are you aware of Power Comics, because they really celebrate that, and so do I. So
That's awesome. Definitely gonna have to check that
yeah,
out.
so tell us about your art style. Is this like you're are you just trying to be yourself? Were you going for like somebody else's inspiration, or how did it evolve?
Um, Initially for this, it was just to get something out. So this was me as quick as I could doing, you know what I mean? Just really, and even going as quickly as I could. You can even tell like it gets a little bit, the art gets a little bit better as it
Right,
progresses, just because I'm doing the art more consistently now.
right,
Um, for me, I like the style. I wanted to do an '80s black and white comic. I wanted it to look like Silver Wolf, North Star, like one of
yeah.
those kinds. Early Tim
yeah,
Vigil, that kind of vibe and
yeah,
feel. Um, those are the comics I love the most. Those were the comics that made me fall in love with comics again. Faust, Grips, The Crow, all the outlaw black and white comics. Those are my absolute
yeah.
favorites.
And isn't it amazing that, like, I don't know if it's still the same, but you could find those in the dollar bin a couple years ago. And I think people are just starting to get aware of the fact that maybe they're worth a little bit more. But I definitely have maybe a half a dozen or a dozen of those, and I really appreciate that I got them cheap when I could.
Well,
Yeah.
my thing was is I growing up for comics. The way I got into it all was sick one day, and Mom brought back from the grocery store a 3 pack of Charlton books. So and my whole thing was constantly drawing, and I had nothing more or less attached to cartoons or comics or whatever it was. But as I did develop as a young man, became obsessed with ninjas, and it was all from black belt theater. And once again, it had nothing to do with comics. Now my whole group of friends, one of them, we're meeting on a nice early hot summer morning, and we're on our bikes, and one of them shouts, "Hey, there's a comic book store down Marsh Road," which where we lived was going to be like an hour bike ride. "We should go check it out," and we're like, "Well, it's 8:30 in the morning. Let's go." Let's just, that's what we're going to do today. So the group of us go. We get there, and this guy Craig owned the store and everything, and he was no early riser, so they were closed, and it said they'd be open at like 10 o'clock. So we're just all laying on the lawn talking, blah blah blah. He comes, he's like, "What's going on?" We're like, "Oh, we want to check your comic book store out." Opens that door, we all follow in. It was actually the basement, the side entrance basement to a house, and it was small, but I walk in, and he had a rack of what would become, to me, known to me as black and white comics, but every single title had the word ninja on it. It didn't matter. So I'm looking at these. I've got, some scratch in the pocket, which is probably like $2.35, and we're all, my buddies are all going for Spider-Man, and my brother's going for G.I. Joe and everything. I just grab what I can for buying two or something. I actually probably mooched money off my brother to get a third comic. But I came in at that place. Like, I don't have an entry level at, other than like later, a little bit later, it becomes John Buscema and Alfredo Alcala's Savage Sword. But I'll tell you right now, as things kept moving, and I did want to become an artist, illustrator, not so much comic books, I loved all of those black and whites, Silver Wolf, like you said, and just all those books, all those grips. I loved all those books because I had enough confidence that I could copy them. If you gave me, Barry Windsor Smith was blowing up at that time, and I remember having a copy of Machine Man, and I was just so like, oh my God, my brain, all the synapses were firing off right, and I started sitting down trying to draw Barry Windsor Smith. I was like, forget this. So I believe the accessibility to art, as it's going back to like even the marketing thing, this is like a perfect tell. It's like if you go to you're like, oh, okay, Renegade. All right, this looks like a badass thing. And then you do this. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I got you. What is it? What is it? $3? What do I owe you? That's one of the most exciting things, which brings me into the next segment, which we call the future of comics. Like, it's basically a question, Al. Like, do you have any dreams, wishes, hopes about comics, or do you see things specifically coming down the way when it comes to specifically indie comics, but we could even go as broad as comic books, manga?
I'm not sure what's coming down the pipe. I'm not going to pretend to have any great insight into that. I'll leave that for the other YouTubers. I will say, for me personally, my dreams, hopes, and aspirations, I want. Have you guys seen the Crow Deluxe Edition hardcover?
I haven't. No.
No.
It's awesome. It's a beautiful hardcover collection of the Crow. It's on nice paper. It's a gorgeous book, and I love that it's everything. It's all right there. It's in one hardcover. My goal is to eventually be able to do that with Renegade. I want all of Renegade collected in one really beautiful, nice hardcover book. I don't care if I only make 10 of them and sell 3.
Nice.
That is my goal, is to eventually do that. So I have the whole series mapped out. I have it all plotted. I'm filling in all the gaps and doing all the writing now. But that is, for me, the ultimate end goal. With that, I think the move is to do a deluxe hardcover, for people like me who are art nerds and really love that stuff. And then on the flip side, I want to do a tankobon sized collection of Renegade as a soft cover for as dirt cheap as possible. And I think those are the two paths to go for indie comics is because there are people who are always going to want the fancy, beautiful collect. They really like it. That's what they want. Awesome. But for most people, if you can get those tankobon sized collections out there for cheap, you can get people exposed to the book.
Right. So it's basically going towards like I don't want to say graphic novel, but a collectible edition. Like a real document of the full storyline that that your opus, I guess, is you would say, right?
Artifact.
Well, Jesus Christ, opus. I mean, good Lord, let's take it. Book called Renegade. Come on now, fellas. But yeah, I mean, it'll be my work. Everything I put into it, I like the idea of putting all this work in, but still putting the effort into each individual issue. But I like the idea of the final collection, everything all together in one unit.
Right.
Yeah, I think the cooler part of that is like the artifact, because I have a similar type of feeling. I'm more like I want like 18 by 24 book or something. Just the original 13 by 19 of the original pages, that kind of art book type of thing. But the artifact, as you mentioned, I think is a really good marketing goal orientation, is the spine. So if you've got a 400-page book that took you 35 years to put together, and you've got X amount of floppies, and you've got a fan base of a couple hundred people, just a couple, 200 people or so. You got a website, which I applaud. It is not outside of the reality in a goal being achieved where somebody, as a true fan, has to have it. Like, it's just, you dragged me this far for 35 years. There's no reason why I don't get this. But the additional mechanism, the crosshair, is that is going to look really sweet between John Tar and Vendetta. That once again, wherever they're kind of compiling their bookshelf to show off power comics, if that's how they want to categorize you, or they categorize their own collection. Right?
If you want to sandwich it in between the Crow Deluxe Edition and the Faust Omnibus, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to bring the property value down, but I'm not going to stop you.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, that's awesome. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but I think that's the first time in an interview a guest was as specific as you, Al, in like an like I said, an artifact. Like there's something that I'm going to acquire. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, it's like, it's gaining following, it's gaining, you know what I mean? It's like, I want to be able to go here. Television would be great, and these are all practical ways of going about having a goal. But that's not like, it just, you ring very true to yourself, sir. And I really appreciate hearing it. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, because if this was about getting attention and getting viewers and stuff, I probably wouldn't last. For me, I want to make the thing.
Right. That's awesome.
That's really it. I want to make the thing, and eventually I'd like some people to see it. So hopefully I pick them up along the way.
Cool.
Right.
Well, now we get to the last part, which is you have a copy of Turbo Pit Fighter in the exchange that we do. Bam! You got Jake's version. I'll be flipping through my version. But Jake and I love getting people's responses to our work, feedback, criticism. Hey, what did you guys think? We just love to have people give it to us. So please, let us have it, Al.
I honestly don't have a ton of criticism. I have a bunch of compliments. Number one, I love the art style. I love how action-packed it is. I love that there's not a ton of talking heads. I love that. That's a big thing that a lot of indie comics will fall into. And it's like, what the hell's the point of doing a comic if you're just going to do talking heads?
Write a book.
And yeah, I love it. I love that you're telling the story with the action pacing. I like the going back and forth, between modern time and flashbacks. So you're like, okay, I'm getting what's happening here, with this character and the world building. Here's another thing you guys did great. I understand what's happening in your comic. Boy, I don't know why that's a problem for so many people, but I understand the story. I understand what's happening. I understand who all the characters are. I get exactly what's happening. There's never a question of like, well, how did that happen?
Right.
It's really clear. It's action packed. You move the camera around a lot, which is great. Yeah, I don't have any criticism. If you're watching, buy the book.
Thank you.
Well, we just have a teaser out so far, but yeah, we're working towards our coffee table edition one day too. I mean, we have we have, I think, on our calendar, try to get issue number 1 out, which will be like 28 pages by next year. But in the meantime, we're putting out our anthology and our whole other prequel sequel thing, with collaborators too. So thanks for the kind words. It's it's nice to hear that the story's easy to follow, and that somebody's appreciating the work that we're putting in for like camera angles and stuff like that. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, man. I mean, one of the big regrets I have in my book, just because again, it was a matter of time. I wanted to get something. I just had this desire to put a comic out. You know what I mean? You guys used every bit of space. There's the real graphomania, which I love. I love the drawing everywhere. You're using every bit of the animal with these pages, and it's awesome to see.
Yeah, it is kind of dense. And we got to a point in issue number 2, which is only being penciled right now, where it might have been a little too dense. So there's definitely a happy medium in there. But
For what it's worth, I think you guys are striking that happy medium with this teaser. I love it, man. I think it's great. The backgrounds, there's another thing. Boy, did I not do much in the way of backgrounds, and you guys do, and that goes such a way in building the world out, man. The backgrounds are so important, and you guys did a great job with this.
yeah, thanks. We have 2 guys on it, so if I hand something to Kurt and it's a little undeveloped, then he goes in and, he's doing some interesting stuff with his splotches and splashes and spray paint and, wrinkles and crinkles and all that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, it's great. Gives it a unique vibe and style. It's you guys got a duo thing going on like Eastman and Laird. I like it.
Well, you're talking some good names there. I wish I had that bank account. Yeah, it's the one complaint that we get a lot is that it's going very slow. I mean, so that might be where it's kind of negative. Is that we only do this on Sundays. We're documenting the whole thing on our podcast, Making Turbo Pit Fighter, and it's already been 3 years, and we're just coming out with our next 6 pages, so that's only going to take us up to like 18 pages after 3 years. So people will be like, "Wow,
man. A long time, guys." Not gonna lie, that is a long time. I can understand. Here's the problem: you made something good. I want more.
Yeah, us too. Yeah. I mean, I'll be in a couple of years. I will be able to retire as a teacher, and I might be able to pick up the pace considerably. We'll see. But
that's awesome. Yeah, that is the one struggle thing I think with indie comics the most, and this is why I'll say I do have a plan about that. This is one of the things that indie comics struggles with is pacing. Is people like these books, they want to keep going, and then like it's a year in between issues and stuff. That's why what I'm trying to do, like I said, is is get all the writing and all the groundwork done. And my goal is to actually like take a year and a half, and actually draw the whole thing so that when I eventually do release it, I can release it on a monthly basis.
It's great.
I think the way Ed did it with Red Room, where he took like a year,
Yeah.
did 4 issues,
Yep.
and then put them out on a monthly basis.
Yep.
I think that is the move for indie comics in general. And then you guys are doing a great job. You have a YouTube show. You're documenting the whole process.
Yep.
You have a Patreon. So if people want to stay up to the minute with it, they totally can.
No, we don't have a
and
Patreon.
Then,
we don't have a Patreon.
well, you well, damn it,
No, it's good. No, keep going. No, yeah. Yeah, it's the I'll tell you with Ed and Jim, there's been the one big impact they had on me that still resonates every day when I get up and get in front of my drawing board is aggressively at times they could be, it felt brutal where they would say, just take a year off and make your book. Don't rush it. There's no, there was one episode and I've tried to find it because the two of them like kind of just got off script. And it just stuck with me because that was the thing I was struggling. I think a lot of us struggle with because of Marvel DC and the monthly book and the newsstand and the people want it. You got to give with it. And it's just not realistic. It's not realistic. And to give yourself that ability to just take a breath and just say, okay, today I've got 3 hours and I'm going to put 3 hours of work in. And I might move that far or I might move that far, but I'm still moving. And as it collects together, it'll be there and people will be there to meet with it. So yeah,
that was another good point. I think Ed and Jim made is like you could take 30 minutes a day. If you actually took 30 minutes every day and actually worked on at the end of a year, you would absolutely have a 20-page comic.
Yeah, when Jake reached out to me and we were sorting things out, we literally for almost I think a couple of months, it was like a month, like maybe 5 weeks. We didn't have any aspirations of podcasting or nothing like that. We just wanted to get together on Sunday and show each other what, the progress, but we weren't making any progress. That was the thing. And the moment Jake said, why don't we do a podcast for my own business, the marketing side for artists, I had been wanting to do that for somebody, but none of the artists that I was working with was interested in starting a podcast. So I was like, this is going to be great. And then I even admit the first couple of months, I was very frustrated with the podcasting model as it was at that point 3 years ago, which was like, oh, we need more podcasting. But Jake would constantly remind me, I only got Sundays, Kurt, and it's only for, 3 hours. And then that I turned into, for me, marketing wise of us, that's magic. The fact that we get together every Sunday, and it's like I say, my coining phrase for making Turbo is I feel like I'm hanging out at Jake's house. Got some comics I'm sharing, and like you also said, it's documenting. It's documenting the process. Yeah. So by the time we do have something substantial like the first issue out, and it becomes something of a finally, everybody's saying finally, and then some people are like, well, who the hell are these guys? You know what I mean? And then wow, they've got 400 and something episodes of a podcast where they're making it. That becomes super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a long-term thing, but we along the way we started doing these indie creator interviews, which is great because it's led to a lot of collaborations. And then we also do the sometimes we do the flip throughs. We call that the comics that influenced, and that's just scratching that itch that everybody has, because we have all these comics, but are you really like you read them once in a while and then you put them back in the box? That's not good enough. You want to share them, and Kurt and I are both like art teachers, so we go over like the techniques, and we go over like the history and all that. So just geeking,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
just geeking out, and have making a good time of it. And yeah, so we're glad that we came across you, and we glad that we got Renegade. I've had this in my drawer for like a while now, and got to catch up with you and find out all about your process here.
I really appreciate it, guys. I really thank you for having me. It was a blast to do this, and like a lot of people, I'm really looking forward to Turbo Pit Fighter #1.
Yeah,
I
it's
can wait.
coming someday. It's coming someday.
It'll be
You're gonna
here. It'll
see,
get here.
yeah, you're gonna see Doom Magazine's #1 a lot earlier, a lot more before that. That's gonna be coming out before this calendar year is over, by hook or by crook.
Nice.
Yeah, so that'll
Yeah, it's
be
our
like,
upgrade
Are
from
you guys
teaser. Upgrade from teaser to anthology. So,
nice? Are you guys planning on doing IC3 next year?
oh yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah,
definitely. Yeah, we had a
Awesome.
great time. It's what
yeah,
conventions should be, I think. So
yeah,
we're
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally the thing I look forward to every year.
Yes, me too.
yeah, it was really meaningful because you're meeting your audience and you're selling some product and everything, but the hangouts with the creators and the
Yeah, I mean that's what that's I literally got to hang out with Ken Landgraf and get
Yep,
drawing lessons from him. I mean,
yep.
what the fuck?
right. Yeah, I mean the drink and draw. We did it the night before and the night after, and just hanging with all these people that we've been interviewing, and then meeting all these other people. And Kurt comes away with this enormous list of upcoming interviews that we've been just like spending the whole year now doing catch up. So
That's
yeah, it was
awesome.
good. Yeah, we hope, and yeah, we definitely hope to go back, and we hope to see you there and hang out.
Absolutely. I'm as long as they'll keep having me, I'll keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds good, man.
So, Al, why don't you take us out? Give us some, places to go online to find more of what you're working on. Anything coming down the line.
Okay. Defectivecomics.net is where you go to buy any of the comics, Renegade or the issues of Defective, the anthology series. If you want to follow me on any social media platform, it's at Alfred Comic. And thank you, Jake and Kurt, for having me on.
All
Welcome.
right, so you
You're
said it
welcome.
was at
Thank you.
Alfred Comic, right?
Yes,
All
sir.
right, sounds good. All right, so that's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Indie Creator Exchange. Check out our flagship podcast, Making Turbo Pit Fighter, live every Sunday at around 10 a.m. Eastern. And you can check out our other channel, the Comics That Influence, where we do flip throughs. We're going to say goodbye for now. Alfred, don't hang up. We're going to have a little word afterwards. But, folks, we'll see you in the funny papers.
I'll see you next Sunday, Jake.
All right.